Clear Lake City Council of Monday, January 16th, 2023 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Bennett, that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To the consent agenda, you have a copy of the minutes of January 3rd, 2023, and January 13th, 2023, which was a budget workshop. We need approval of the bills and claims, of which you also have a copy. And we have the following licenses and permits. We have a liquor license, Class CE, retail alcohol license LE, with Fairway Stores Incorporated, number 705. Motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Gary, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for any citizen in the audience who wishes to address the council on any issue or concern that is not on the agenda. Please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. This is not a discussion time nor a question and answer time, and you have 3 to 5 minutes. None appearing, we'll move on to unfinished business, of which we have none this evening. We'll move right directly to 6 new business. 6A, South 15th Street, Everybody Plays Inclusive Park and Playground Project, review of pay estimate number 1. Scott Flory, City Administrator. Welcome, Scott.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Council, these are the first purple sheets there in your packet. As Mayor indicated, this is the first pay estimate for the South 15th Street Inclusive Park and Playground Improvement Project. This pay application is in the amount of $41,572. If you kind of flip through, you can see what specifically this item is for. So generally, it's site work, $31,500, as well as the performance bond and general conditions. So in terms of an update, as you've been up there and seen, the contractor has got a subcontractor mobilized for the project, and they're busy doing the site work. They've hauled in quite a bit of dirt, fill material, and they're also working on the storm sewer. And I think the last I talked to Tyler with Snyder, they had laid about 100 foot of the 12-inch storm sewer pipe and getting ready to tie that in, and then they're working on the sanitary next. So, frost is not real deep in the ground, so they're able to do a lot of work. So they're going to continue on with it for the time being. So again, a lot of good work going on up there.
It's kind of amazing the frost is out.
Yeah, well, it's not that deep, just not real deep in there. So yeah, they're able to get that storm sewer going, and then they go sanitary next. So.
Any questions or comments for Scott, Council? Thank you, Scott. Therefore, entertain a motion to pay estimate number 1 with regard to the South 15th Street Everybody Plays Inclusive Park and Playground Project in the amount of $41,572. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mark, that we approve pay estimate number 1. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. 6B, dock slip permit fee increase for city permitted docks. Review, Mr. Flory.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, the yellow sheet in your packet is a resolution increasing the city dock slip permit fees. That, as we had the last council meeting, I had mentioned that the Park and Rec Advisory Board had met and discussed this issue and had recommended an increase in the dock slip permit fees from $200 to $250 for non-commercial, and from $350 to $500 for commercial. I did want to point out, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, that they have not been increased since 2014. on the non-commercial, and the commercial rates have not been increased since 2015. So when we started looking at that, we looked at the average rate of inflation over that length of time, so it's about 2.59%. And then so if you kind of run the math on that, when it comes to a cumulative price increase of just under 26%, so the increase that is proposed is really very consistent with the increase in terms of the cost of inflation over that period of time. So, and if the council approves that, then we'll go ahead and send this out to the dock permit holders and let them know the increase. They'll be effective for later this year. So.
Questions for Scott, Councilor?
Yeah, I can't remember, Scott. Do you remember the last time we raised this, by the way?
Yeah, 2014 on non-commercial and 2015 on commercial. So been 8-9 years on those.
Yeah, so very appropriate to review that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions for Scott, Council? Therefore, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2304, a resolution increasing city dock slip permit fees.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Bennett that we approve Resolution 2304. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2304 is duly adopted. 6C, ISO, Public Protection Classification Report. Intro, Mr. Flores.
Yeah, I don't have a lot for an introduction. I just want to give a shout out to Doug Myers, the fire chief, police department, Aaron Froning, the communications director, and our water department superintendent, Adam Tice, for working on this project. We haven't had that update for a little while now, so it was a real positive report. So I thought everyone would appreciate getting some of the details from Doug on this. We increased our classification rating from a 4 to a 3, so that's very, very good. And considering that our department is all volunteer, primarily all volunteer department, that is really outstanding in my opinion. So just ask Doug to kind of review that with you, and if you have any questions. So.
Thanks. Welcome, Doug.
Nelson, Council, thank you. Scott provided you the total report within your packet, and I believe the cover letter that came along with it. And indeed, the last time we were rated by ISO, they try to come around every 5 years or so. So the last report was done in December of 2017. At that time, it was a 4 split rating of 4Y. Those split ratings reflect properties that are outside of a 5-mile travel distance from the fire station. So this current report that we just received word of last week, as Scott mentioned, dropped our rating from a 4 to a 3, which is actually an improvement. The 3Y is now what insurance providers can use as a reference. And this goes into effect the 1st of April of this year. In talking with some of the local independent agents, insurance agents around town, depending on the company that people may have their insurance through, they may see anywhere from a stable price in their next premium renewal or up to a 5% decrease in their premium renewal. So when you kind of spread that across the entire community, most insurance providers use ISO as references, and their underwriters will take that data and develop those premium rates. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to get a decrease. It just depends on the carrier that we all use. When we look at the ISO, how they break down the rating scale, 10% of the final score comes from the Emergency Communications Center. 50% comes from the fire department, and that includes what they term as community risk reduction, and 40% will come from the water system. The community risk reduction includes things like, do we have an open burning ordinance? Do we do site review, plan reviews for new construction? What type of sprinkler ordinance we may have? All of those things go into the community risk reduction, including how well we investigate fire causes. So we're fortunate we have a retired deputy state fire marshal on our department that helps us with all those investigations, provides training for our staff. When we look at the fire department, includes training of the staff, the equipment we have, the facilities, how many firefighters respond to calls throughout the year to all structure fires, and whether or not we meet some of the minimum standards established by the National Fire Protection Association. The water supply looks at the distribution of the hydrants, mapping, and the maintenance of the hydrants, how often they're flow tested, inspected, and flushed. All those things go into those score developments. In Iowa, currently there are 41 departments that are Class 3. There's 22 that are Class 2 departments, and there's 2 Class 1 departments. So 65 departments in Iowa that are Class 3 or better. Nationwide, that Class 1 through 3, the makeup is about 14% of departments nationwide that fall into those classes, one of those 3 classes. So that's incredibly good. And Scott mentioned some of the struggles to get there have to deal with staffing. ISO uses a formula that for every career firefighters, it takes 3 volunteers to earn that credit. And that has no reflection on how well they're trained or how well the job they do when they're actually at a call, but that's just what ISO uses to create a company-level staffing plan. So I went back and looked at the differences from 2017 to 2022. The communications section scored a 9.4 out of a total of 10 points, was phenomenal. Statewide, should be 6.6, so they're way above that. Fire department score is 29.54, statewide 18.61, and both of these were increases from the rating we had in 2017. Community risk reduction, again, this year 3.31, statewide 2.14. Took a little bit of a slide from 2017 with that, but not much. And it had to deal with our ability to do plan reviews and on-site inspections at every commercial building in the city. Now, that's pretty tough when you have a volunteer fire department and 1 building official to inspect every one of those commercial properties. So that's where our hit came from. Instead, it was not significant. Water supply this year 32.38 compared to statewide average of 16.98. One of the things that took a little bit of a slip there had to do with our mapping. Now with the new GIS system that you're investing in, that'll fix that. So our total score went up from 68.3 to 70.3. So that's pretty good. And a lot of it had to do, when we look at how they weigh each of the different categories, had to do with improvements in the dispatch center and the fire department. When we look at how to maintain that now, or possibly increase, or making a better score, it's really tough from the fire department section to overcome the fact that we use all volunteers. We need to have 3 times as many volunteers as we have career staff. And that is a huge investment, and one that we're probably not going to see a good balance of that investment of hiring more staff versus the much better ISO rating. The training areas within the volunteers all have to do with the expectation by ISO to meet all of the NFPA standards when it comes to the amount of training that's done. recruit training in a PA's guide, they would like us to have 240 hours per new recruit coming in before they ever go on a fire call. Our recruits right now, we're doing about 80 hours in the first year. So once again, that's a function of how much time we're asking our volunteers to provide back to the city. So it's, again, just kind of a re-summary. 2 Class 1 departments, one of them Sioux City, and I don't know who the other one is. I've tried to find out who the other Class 3 departments are in the state. I can't get ISO to answer me. I can't get the insurance companies around here to answer me. I reached out to the agent that did our grading or our rating here, and he hasn't gotten back with me. So people are pretty tight-lipped when it comes to, the companies are pretty tight-lipped about sharing that information. They don't want to create a aggressive competition using ISO scores. So it's a good thing that we're able to do that. You know, the reason we're able to do that, several points. Number one, the investment in the equipment, the investment in the time, and the investment into the volunteer program for their training. So it's incredibly important that we continue to do those things. Any questions specifically you have about the ISO program or what the results are?
I'd just add the technology and infrastructure as well, that over the years, the council has invested so heavily into that, and that's why I think it's so important for Doug to be able to communicate this information as positive report back to the council, because you have invested millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars into these things, and you know, to be rated, as Doug has said here, in a very elite category here.
Yeah, I would just agree with that, Scott. I think it's very impressive, Doug, and the rest of our departments too, water department, other folks. Again, as Scott said, millions of dollars. And I really appreciate the volunteer effort that your guys make, Doug, and your whole team and the rest of them, because I guess just to boil it down, you tell me if I'm accurate, by making all these investments, we're saving homeowners money on their homeowners insurance, because that ISO rating going from 4 to 3 on average saves them money.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very, very important. And
I think, Mark, you know, you work in the insurance industry as well, and yeah, there are some companies that may say, well, we'll just hold your premium static. Others may say, yeah, we're going to give you a discount based on that change in the ISO rating.
yeah,
You know, and there are a few companies that don't use ISO at all. It all kind of factors into how they do their underwriting.
but a lot of them do, and I just think our investments here, and again, thank you to you and the volunteers for, again, all the effort, because it really does make a difference in saving them money. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I spent some time, believe it or not, reading this. It's good go-to-sleep material, but by the same token, for me, over the years, it serves as a way of looking how much interest the various councils over the years have put into this, and administrators, and also the cooperation between, as Bennett just said, you've got your communication staff, who are the initial people that if there is an emergency, and now, you know, as of the last meeting, we're right up to where we should be as far as officers and communications people, and an excellent, my opinion, director in that with the communications people there. You know, there's your step one, and then you actually come with your fire department. And like you said, if that was a full-time department, this rating might even been a tad better, who knows? But that's, and then the water department, I remember, you know, when I early came on here, we were just about ready to put up that south, or the east water tower, and that was replacing a 500,000 gallon tank. And that, what did we put, a 1,000,000-gallon tank out there? And then we did the same thing on the west side, North Tower, or whatever you want to call it. So we've got 2 1,000,000-gallon tanks, I think, and plus the 250, which is down there. What are we supposed to have? I think 1.86 in reserve at all times.
Yep.
And we've got, what, 2,000,000.2? So,
You know, when you look at, when you really dive deep and dissect the report, there's so many factors that every section gets broken down further and further. The water department's a perfect example. They want to know how fast your pumps will recover. What's the average daily usage of water? What the maximum daily usage of water has been over the last 3 years. So there's tons of data that every department has to track. The dispatch center tracks. How long does it take them to answer the phone? How long does it take them to process that? The number of dispatchers, the number of circuits, how many 911 calls, what type of 911 system is in place. Is it just a standard? Is it enhanced? Does it include texting, video? So there's several of these things that go into play. We talk about training, not only for the fire department, but for the dispatch staff. Their ongoing training is part of that. And you know, giving kudos to Pete and to Aaron over in dispatch, it does make a huge difference. When people understand what standards ISO looks at, what they follow. From the fire department's perspective, it's the NFPA guidelines. And they're pretty extensive. You know, same thing, NFPA falls into the dispatch center as well. Based on the number of 911 calls that come in, all that stuff goes into play. So it just, the survey, we did the initial work in August. We just got the report back, you know, like I said, a week and a half ago.
well, think of the technology that we've thrown into the communications department, that we've thrown into the water department, where those guys can tell how much is in each tower by sitting at home and looking at it on their computer, and when to start this pump and when to start that pump. And plus, one last thing, we've had a very, very big donor to our fire department almost year after year after year. I think you know who that donor would be, and that certainly has helped.
No, and part of that is their connection to the city and to the fire department specifically, but they appreciate all the work that, you know, their family has done for the city as well. And it is important, you know, it's not a huge surprise who it is. I mean, you know, my sister and her husband, and, you know, Mark and Diane, they believe in the direction we're going. So that takes a little bit of a burden off the finance of, you know, Creighton and city council, but they have certainly made things better for the department as
I'll
well.
tell you, when that new plane comes in, I want to ride. Thanks, Doug. Thank you. All right, 6D, professional services agreement.
Nelson?
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Could I make a couple of comments on the
Please do.
fire situation?
Please do.
Yeah, thank you. You know, as someone that was on board pre-2010 with the old fire station, I'm just amazed with the growth of everything surrounding our fire protection. And, you know, I think the infrastructure's been a big part of that, but another part that we're kind of overlooking here is the community support. I remember that bond issue, and I remember Scott being it was a tough economic time in 2008, and Scott was a little curious as to whether the bond issue would even go, and it went with flying colors. I think somewhere around 80%. On top of that, every time I come to the pancake feed, there's a pretty good turnout. And I know it's not a huge moneymaker, but I think it shows how invested our city is in trying to support our fire department. And, you know, despite all of that, it still comes down to the wonderful people that have served that fire department for literally decades. I grew up when the fire station was on North 4th Street, where the north end of Clear Lake Bank and Trust building is. And then in 1965, the part of the police station that used to be the fire station became the fire station. And now with the equipment and the ambulances and everything else, most of those vehicles wouldn't even fit in there anymore. So I think it's just a credit to a tremendous number of people and the community, and more importantly, great leadership like Doug, that we've got what we've got, and I thank you.
Yep. Well said, Mike, thanks. Okay, 6D, professional service agreement with RDG for Surf District Destination Iowa Project, Streetscape, and Lake Connection. Mr. Flory.
Thanks, Mayor. I just also echo your thank you to Mike on that. Appreciate those comments and observations. So the white sheets in your packet deal with this item. It's a proposal that we've negotiated with RDG for a couple of components of the Destination Iowa Surf District Creative Placemaking Grant Project. This particular service agreement deals with two of the items that are identified as the Surf District Gateway and Streetscape component, as well as the Clear Lake lake connection between the surf and the lake. So this only deals with those items. So the scope of services that be provided, very similar to things that RDG has done for us in the past. With respect to this area, this is kind of broken down in a couple of different initiatives, one being what we kind of refer to as mobility initiatives, and the other being placemaking initiatives. So things like under the mobility initiatives that we would have RDG and the engineering consultants take a look at would be opportunities to enhance the railroad crossing, vehicular issues related to 8th Avenue North and Glen Cove Drive. We looked at that in the applications, maybe closing that street off just as a concept for the grant, but that's something we take a look at. Partial repaving between 8th Avenue North and Highway 18 on Buddy Holly Place. I mean, everybody has been on that many times and fully understands that that is in some need of attention. Taking a look at some intersection visibility and safety adjustments there. Also enhanced crosswalks, so things like special paving or marking, signage and signalization types of things, and electrical and lighting improvements there. Under the placemaking component, we're looking at things like the gateway features, public art elements. Roadway features would involve things like repetitive surf district themed signage and lighting, as well as wayfinding elements. And then we get into the lake issue, the promenade connection, the sort of a district theme connection between the surf and the lake, enhanced landscaping, lighting, seating, and signage, also potentially a small-scale pavilion, as well as a boat access dock. Also, under placemaking features, we have some things in there that we would anticipate would be kind of routine items that we would bid out as part of the standard package on these projects. So things like footings, masonry type work, electrical, those things under the regular competitive bid packaging that we'd be doing on this project. But there'll be some other components. So give you an example, like when we did the City Beach project. The tile that was put on the restroom there, very creative, very unique, and that was fabricated not under the auspices of that particular contract with the general contractor, but that was done separately by the art studio that RDG has and works with there. So we would envision that there would be some kind of fully customized, in particular art-related work that would not be part of a general bid package, but be done as a sole source kind of procurement. So in terms of the approach, again, you've been through many RDG projects in the past, but very similar projects, kind of broken down into 3 different tasks. So there'd be a preliminary design phase and schematic phase. That would be sort of our task 1. Then we would proceed to a more final design and develop construction documents for bidding. And then we go into the construction phase, which is task 3, and the final phase, which is, again, the bidding aspect of the project, and then overall construction, administration, and management of the work. So that's just kind of a high-level view of those particular tasks. In terms of the schedule, For preliminary design, obviously, we had a work group committee that we had worked with when we developed the grant application itself. So we would reconvene that group as sort of a task force and probably add a few people, interested parties that might have some interest in joining the group to help facilitate that. So we would like to have a large inclusive committee there. So that we anticipate starting yet this year. So in the spring of 2023, and then we would proceed to the next phase on task 2, final design, probably in the summer, and then look for a bidding and start construction probably in the spring of 2024. So the total, if you recall from the application that we submitted to Iowa Economic Development Authority, the total cost for those components, construction-wise, was about $3.9 million. And so this component of the project would be about, for professional services, about 13%. So that includes architectural services, engineering services, and planning services. So again, that's about 13% of that overall estimated cost of construction for the project. So I guess I don't have anything further on that. There'd be some things like that we'll have to do that would not be included in that. So some things like survey work, RDG would help us develop, just like on other projects like at City Beach, develop a request for proposals, and we would solicit proposals from firms to provide detailed survey, topographical survey to kind of work for that. Also, soil borings, soil exploration work, so we would develop an RFP and get proposals to do that kind of work as well. So those specialized things would not be included here, but those are not big ticket items.
So any questions? Scott? Thank you. For entertain a motion to approve professional services agreement with RDG by the City Council of Clear Lake.
Moved.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mark, that we approve the professional services agreement with RDG for the Surf District Destination Iowa project, streetscape and lake connection. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, real quick if I could. I think, as Scott described this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, what's really exciting about this is to increase, let's say, mobility for pedestrians down there, and then also the artwork and what I would just term beautification of the area. I mean, so very exciting to see those dimensions of the project begin with this agreement, and I think will really make a significant difference down there. So, thank you, Mayor.
And always remember, I think in our case, certainly Scott assures that we have the best communication that we possibly can have. And RDG has always been good in all the projects that we have done with that. And
Yeah.
thanks, Scott, for staying on top of that. It certainly helps us out here. Very good. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you. Chief Roth.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll direct your attention to the blue sheet in the back of your packet. You'll find our stats through December of this year. This is not our annual report. These are just kind of a tentative run of our numbers for this year. We're still working on that annual report. Hopefully get that to you maybe mid or end of February. I'll just give you a brief update on our new employees. Officer Conklin and Pavelka, both those officers are out working with field training officers, and they're out on shifts working. I believe Paige was working today, and Blaine is working evenings tonight. Officer Pedelty, she's in week 3 at the academy, week 3 of 16, so she's kind of got through the newness, but she's kind of not in the mid area yet, but she's still going and she's enjoying it. And then our newest dispatcher, Molly Vandenbrocke, is working tonight. It's her first solo shift tonight. She got off of her training, so we're excited that she is over there right now on an evening shift as her first shift solo. So we're very excited about that.
So we should call over and liven it up for her.
Correct. Just call her one right now. She'll answer. And finally, we started our in-service, and we had it in here, and we'll be here tomorrow too with CPR and first aid. So we're kind of getting through that stuff before the spring and summer hit, so. And that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Council, any questions for Chief? Once again, we are up to full staff now. That's,
I'm almost afraid to say it out
I
loud
know,
anymore,
I
so.
know.
Yeah.
So shut up, Crab, and move on. Thank you. Public Work Director, Jeremy? Welcome.
Mayor, council, just a couple of updates. We had our Christmas tree pickup last week, went real smooth, got all the greenery down from the winter, and all cleaned up. Other than that, just general winter maintenance. Roads seem to be in pretty good shape right now. Friday and today, we started going through some of the gravels, some of the non-hard surfaced roads, cleaning those up with the rain we got and the ice pack. They kind of turned into ice skating rinks. So we've been taking some use with the icebreaker that we have, as well as the road grader and some of the buckets, cleaning those up. We've got quite a few to still go through, but so if you do get any calls on those, we are working through those to kind of get them cleaned up before this next snow, so.
Yeah, I'd just add, you sent me those videos with the icebreaker there. I was still amazed how well that works on those non-paved surfaces like that, busting up that ice, and some of that was really thick.
Yeah, hopefully when we start tomorrow, I'll get out there and take some video right as I start. But as you can tell, it's pretty aggressive. It kind of leaves some holes, so that's why we try not to use it on pavement unless it's a severe situation, just because it can do some damage if you're not careful. So the guys running it have been operating it for a while now. We're getting a little better at it. So if you got a good operator, they can make it work real well and clean those up pretty good. So yeah.
Well, the call I got down the North 8th place, they couldn't even get in and out of it, or it was so bad with the ice, and then the icebreaker came, and they're very happy.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, and I sent them out there, and I was gonna go out and take some video, and by the time I even got that direction, they were about done, so. Yeah, I drove out there right before council, and it was pretty much down to gravel, so, took care of it pretty good.
Equipment breakdowns were pretty good, or?
We're, knock on wood, we're fine right now. We have one blower that's, one of our large blowers that's not operational. We're waiting on, I think a part or two for that. We had to replace some bearings in the augers. But luckily we've had this little break here to work through some mechanical issues that came up after all the storms, so.
I know I shouldn't say this, but water breaks were pretty good on that this winter, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know, I can't remember the last one we had, so you're probably jinxing us here.
Yep.
You're gonna have a lot of people mad at us,
Quit.
I was gonna say.
Big mechanic breakdown, water main.
Well, they are predicting a bunch of snow on Wednesday and Thursday, so again, knock on wood that all our equipment stays running, and we don't get a water main breaker in the middle of it, so. But yeah, no, I think everything's going good, so.
Great. Be prepared. That's the Boy Scouts marching song. Thank you, thank you. Director of Finance Administrative Services, Creighton Schmidt. Welcome, Creighton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Nothing here for you to jinx, Mayor. Before we go into the evaluation report here, I want to thank you all for your support of the city staff holiday party that we held last night at the Wellness Center. It was extremely well attended. This was the first citywide staff party that I'd been a part of, and I think the first in a number of years. And the turnout was great, lots of positive comments. Thank you to those of you who were able to attend last night, and a special thank you to Dana. Dana showed up a couple hours early to help me set up, and he stayed there the entire time, welcoming the staff that came, and also stayed there till the end and was able to tear down with us as well. So thank you for that, Dana.
It was a success.
Yeah. A big thank you to our committee as well. Tiffany Townsend, Aaron Froning, and Jennifer Larson were all a part of that committee. So there's a lot more moving pieces than you would think doing this for the first time, and we have an excellent facility, of course, that we held the event in, but doing it from scratch, there's a lot going on. Also want to thank the Wellness Center staff for opening the doors for us. I know this morning, bright and early, they were all back because they have a new running program for the kids. So got it all cleaned up for them, and we're ready to come back in early the next day. Of course, everyone who attended, again, great turnout. So thank you to the department heads for getting out that word and for everyone who was able to get there. Also, the department heads sponsored the raffle, so we were able to do a raffle that we wouldn't have done otherwise. So thank you to them. The food was provided by the Legacy Grill, and I'll say at a discounted price. And the meal options were not discounted at all. It was a great meal. Heard lots of positive comments about that, again, from the Legacy Grill. And then Charlie's Soda Fountain and Lake Theater both provided small gifts for all the kids who attended. So overall, a great event. Happy to see so many turn out, and thank you all for supporting that event. Valuation report was very positive for Clear Lake, so we got that back recently. Total valuation for Clear Lake went up 10.6% to $1.37 billion, and taxable valuation increased over 11% to $830,000. So very 830 million. 830 million. That'd be a little shocking.
A little more than a rounding error there.
A little rounding error, a few zeros, no big deal. 830 million. So great positive growth. I think maybe there was a double-digit growth when I looked back maybe 10 years ago or something like that. But for a while, kind of in those single digits, which for Iowa is very good to see the single digits that we've seen recently. But to go into double digits here is phenomenal anywhere in the state. So very good improvement on that report.
I'd just add that I did follow up, check with Mason City, they were about 2.5%. So when you're in nearly 11, just again shows the things that are happening here are paying dividend. You know, all the things that you do to make the community a better place results in that.
Questions, council? That's a great report. Come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, under Mayor's report, I just want to piggyback on what Creighton said, but you know, that interaction that we had last night with our employees, first of all, it was started by employees to let's do this. And you're right, it hasn't been done in my years. We used to do one here at noontime, but nothing to involve families, and that family part was good. The communication and the networking there, that just doesn't happen, you know. It occurs when we do things like this. And of course, the tea and crumpets helped out too. You know, that was well worth it. And the donation of all of that is, you know, and boy, to see Dana there, you know, I mean, my gosh.
We've already started planning next year. So put some money in the budget, please.
That's good. Chad, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and great report. Figured you'd ask him if his calculator was going to work, or he had to tried to jinx something, and then he threw out the 130,000, so I figured something was broken. But no, I appreciate the time, you guys, and did want to throw out a quick shout out to the chamber folks. They had their unveiling of the tourism guide last week. Thought they did a great job with that. Awesome cover as usual, and very cool statistics. I thought just the numbers on tourism for the last year were incredibly encouraging, kind of mirroring the growth and valuation. I mean, I think it's pretty impressive to add, what, 80-some rooms in the hotel, and we continue to see the same percentage of occupancy. I mean, that's phenomenal. So just continue to see that growth, and the way that those guys promote this community is phenomenal, taking advantage of the great investments you guys have made. So I did want to give them a shout out. Also, in relation to that, we have the State of North Iowa event coming up Thursday at 8 a.m. I appreciate Creighton, and I think Bennett, and the mayor. I don't know how many folks are talking at that about the Surf District project, but looking forward to hearing about that, and the Mason City Destination Iowa project, and the downtown project, and just kind of an overview of the activities around North Iowa, and going to be covering a pretty broad assortment of things that after we get through those specific details. So that's going to be a fun one. Hopefully gather a good group of people from across the region to celebrate North Iowa and the year we've had and the year and where we're going coming up. Also, I think you guys are well aware the airport had its rebid last week. They did select Joseph Company of Austin, Minnesota was the winning bid. I think it was within $500,000 between them and Snyder's, but you know, hopefully they'll be able to move that forward. They've got, I think they got to get that completed by May of 2024. So it's going to be a push to get all the federal funding and all of that and meet those requirements. Thank goodness they had the footings in already ahead of the winter here, so I think it should move pretty quick, but still it's going to be a push for them. We're also entering the legislative season, everyone's favorite time of year, so a lot of things coming up for that. We, of course, have several of our partners that'll be doing legislative events. That first one's coming up here on Wednesday evening. We've got a legislative reception through the Iowa Chamber Alliance. If you remember last year, we had done the first ever Iowa talent poll, and that was really intended to get a segment of the population across the state. What did they want? What was important to them? And what could we show our legislators were the important items? And we did that again here. The poll ran December 1st through 10th, I believe. We had over 1,200 respondents. So we'll be unveiling the results of that Wednesday night to the legislators, and I'll be able to share the full report to everybody once we get that presented on Wednesday. You know, oddly enough, one of the things that came up was property taxes was a concern point for citizens, and if you've been following the legislators, that is a big item, and they've already presented a bill, HF1. There are some areas of concern that we have on our end with what that'll do and how that'll impact the community. One thing I believe is 3% cap on things, so when we talk 10%, may or may not have a, you know, there's some things in there that we have concerns about and how that'll impact the local government control and what you guys are able to do. So there's a balance there. The reality is something's going to happen on property taxes. I think when you listen to the House and the Senate, they're both saying it. They're both saying it pretty loud. So just be aware of it. We're going to be tracking that, of course, and how that impacts things. One of the initial concerns we have on economic development is how it could impact TIF and the ability to utilize that. There's some caps on that as well, and it might impact geo-bonding and some different things. So there's a lot of things that we want to make sure if they mess with it, let's make sure there's no unintended consequences that cause other problems for you guys specifically or the county. So just things to be aware of. Everyone wants their property taxes to go down, but we don't want it to harm our local government. So finally, we do have a couple of positions we're trying to fill yet. Our workforce position, we entered a partnership with NIAC on that, so that was opened up December 14th. I think we're going to run it for about another week or so, and then we're meeting with NIAC. We're going to review the initial round of applicants and start the interview process hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. We're also going to be submitting or putting out our marketing communication specialist position through the corridor. Hopefully here on Wednesday we'll start marketing that. So trying to get back to full staff and get all those things going, but a lot of things in the works. If there's any questions for me.
For Chad, council. Thanks. Scott?
Just real quick, couple of things. If you recall, we made a traffic safety improvement program application to the Department of Transportation for traffic safety related improvements at the intersection of 27th Avenue South and South 8th Street, and I think Bennett was one that kind of brought this project forward. Well, we were notified a week or so ago that our application for funding was approved. If you recall, we're going to make some signage improvements and some pavement improvements and marking improvements and flashing beacons and these kinds of things at that intersection there. So that has been approved. So there'll be at an upcoming council meeting an agreement with the Department of Transportation governing that grant award. So just give you a heads up on that, and congratulations on that. Also, you're all well aware, and give a special shout out to Beth Ann here tonight for her help in preparing the application for the National Register of Historic Places for the Seawall nomination. So appreciate Beth Ann, your assistance on that and the Historical Society is much valued, and very happy to be officially approved for that. That was a fairly long process, it's about an 18-month long process, and, I worked real well with RDG on the restoration project and the application, so just real thrilled. I think that is now 5 properties that we have in our community that are on the National Register of Historic Places. So, joins the Surf Ballroom in addition to some private properties, and just real happy about that. So that's all I've got.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you all for being here tonight.